The warning lights on the wandering star flashed red across the control panel. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the pilot's chair as the ship shook violently. Sparks flew from the engine display and the smell of burning metal filled the air. "Marcus," she called to her husband. "What's the status on the main drive?" Marcus Vasquez wiped sweat from his forehead as he worked at the engineering station. His hands moved quickly over the controls, but his face showed worry. "The fusion core is overheating. I can't stop it. We need to shut down everything now or we'll have a complete explosion." Elena looked at the star map on her screen. They were in the middle of empty space, far from any human colonies. The nearest help was 3 days away, even at full speed. But they didn't have 3 days. They had maybe 30 minutes before the engine destroyed their ship. "Mama, what's wrong?" 8-year-old Sophie sat in the corner of the bridge holding her favorite stuffed rabbit. Her dark eyes were wide with fear as she watched her parents work. Elena forced a smile for her daughter. "Nothing we can't handle, sweetheart. Just a little engine trouble." But inside, Elena felt cold fear. She had been a cargo pilot for 15 years. She had seen ships like theirs disappear without a trace when their engines failed. No distress signal, no survivors, just empty space where a family used to be. "There," Marcus said, pointing at the screen. "Asteroid field ahead. If we can reach it before the engine goes critical, maybe we can make an emergency landing." Elena studied the display. The asteroids were small, most no bigger than a city block. But one caught her attention. It was larger than the others, maybe 10 kilometers across. Sensors showed it had a thin atmosphere and some kind of cave systems inside. "That one," she said, marking it on the navigation system. "Can we make it?" Marcus ran the calculations. "Barely. But Elena, once we land there, we're stuck. The engine will be completely dead, and our distress beacon is already damaged from the overload." Sophie stood up and walked to her parents. She was small for her age, with her mother's dark hair and her father's gentle eyes. "Are we going to be okay?" Elena knelt down and hugged her daughter. "We're going to land on that big rock out there. It might be like camping, just for a little while." "Like when we went to the mountains on Earth?" Sophie asked. "Something like that," Elena said softly. "But this wasn't like Earth. This was a dead rock in the middle of nowhere, and no one knew they were here." The ship lurched again, harder this time. Marcus shouted from his station, "That's it! Engine shut down in 60 seconds or we all become space dust." Elena ran back to the pilot controls. Her fingers flew over the navigation system, plotting the fastest course to the asteroid. The ship groaned and shook as she pushed the dying engines to their limit. 30 seconds, Marcus called out. The asteroid grew larger on their screen. Elena could see deep cracks and caves across its surface. Some areas looked smooth like crystal formations, but she didn't have time to worry about that now. 10 seconds! Elena cut the engines and let the ship's momentum carry them forward. They were moving too fast for a safe landing, but it was their only chance. The asteroid's weak gravity pulled them down toward its surface. The impact threw them all forward. Sophie cried out as her stuffed rabbit flew across the bridge. Elena felt her shoulder hit the control panel hard. Marcus grabbed onto his station as the ship bounced and scraped across the rocky ground. Finally, they stopped. For a moment, nobody moved. The only sound was the hiss of escaping air from small cracks in the hull. Then Sophie started crying softly. "Is everyone okay?" Elena asked, checking herself for injuries. Her shoulder hurt, but nothing seemed broken. Marcus nodded, though he was holding his arm carefully. "Just bruised, Sophie." Their daughter was scared but unhurt. Elena picked her up and held her tight. "We made it, baby. We're safe now." But they weren't really safe, and Elena knew it. She checked the ship's systems on her tablet. Life support was working, but barely. They had maybe 2 weeks of air and water. The food supplies would last a month. The communication system was completely broken, and the engine was beyond repair. Marcus joined them, looking at the damage reports. "The hull is cracked in 3 places," he said quietly, so Sophie wouldn't hear. "I can patch them, but it's only temporary. And without the main power core, we can't run the air recyclers for long." Elena looked out the front window at the strange landscape around them. The asteroid's surface was covered in unusual rock formations that seemed to glow with their own light. Some looked like giant crystals growing out of the ground. "Maybe someone will find us," she said, but she didn't really believe it. Sophie had stopped crying and was looking out the window too. "Mama, look at all the pretty rocks. They're like the crystals in Grandma's jewelry box." Elena smiled despite their situation. "Yes, they are beautiful, aren't they?" Marcus was already gathering tools to repair the hull cracks. I'll start on the patches. Elena, can you check our supplies and see exactly what we're working with? As her parents worked, Sophie pressed her face to the window. The crystal formations outside were amazing. Some were tall and thin like trees, others were round like flowers. They seemed to change colors as she watched, shifting from blue to purple to silver. I wonder if anyone lives here, Sophie said to herself. Deep beneath the asteroid's surface, in caves that had never seen sunlight, someone did live there. The Kythera had made these tunnels their home for thousands of years. They were beings of living crystal, their bodies resonating with the natural formations around them. Resonance of Starlight was young by Kythera standards, barely 50 years old. Unlike the older members of her species, she was curious about the world above their caves. When the strange metal object crashed onto their asteroid, she felt its vibrations through the crystal networks. The elders had immediately called for a gathering. Unknown beings have come to our world, sang the oldest among them, her voice creating harmonic patterns in the crystal walls. We must decide if we should reveal ourselves. The old stories warn us, sang another elder. Other species seek only to use our gift of crystal growth for their own gain. We should remain hidden. But Resonance of Starlight felt something different in the vibrations from above. Along with the crash and the fear, there was something else. Something soft and musical, like the sound of wind through crystal chimes. I want to see them, she sang softly, just to watch from a distance. The elders were not pleased. You are too young to understand the danger. These beings could destroy everything we have built. But Resonance of Starlight had always been curious. That night, while the other Kythera rested in the deep caves, she made her way toward the surface through tunnels no adult could fit through. Above, in the crashed ship, the Vasquez family was settling in for their first night on the asteroid. Marcus had patched the hull cracks, and Elena had rationed their food and water. Sophie was trying to be brave, but Elena could see she was scared. Tell me the story about the singing princess, Sophie asked as Elena tucked her into her small bunk. Elena sat beside her daughter and began the old story her own grandmother had told her. As she spoke, she hummed the lullaby that went with it. Her voice was soft and gentle, filling the small cabin with warmth. Neither Elena nor Sophie knew that far below them, a young crystal being was listening to that lullaby with wonder. In all the thousands of years of Kythera history, they had never heard anything like human music. And for the first time in her life, Resonance of Starlight felt the crystal formations around her respond to sound with pure, beautiful light. Sophie woke up on their second day on the asteroid feeling hungry and scared. The ship felt cold without the main power running. Her breath made small clouds in the air as she climbed out of her bunk. Mama, she called softly, but her parents were already awake, talking in quiet voices near the broken communication panel. The patches are holding, Marcus was saying, but the air recycler is working too hard. We maybe have 10 days left, not 2 weeks. Elena noticed Sophie listening and quickly changed the subject. Good morning, sweetheart. Are you ready for breakfast? They shared a small meal of protein bars and recycled water. Sophie made a face at the taste, but she didn't complain. She was a smart girl and knew they needed to save their food. Can I go outside and look at the pretty rocks? Sophie asked. I promise I'll stay close to the ship. Elena and Marcus looked at each other. The asteroid had a thin atmosphere that humans could breathe for short periods, and Sophie needed something to do besides worry about their situation. Only for 30 minutes, Elena said, and you wear the emergency suit just to be safe. Sophie smiled for the first time since the crash. She put on the light environmental suit and stepped outside through the ship's airlock. The crystal formations were even more beautiful up close. They seemed to hum softly in the thin air, creating music that reminded her of wind chimes. She walked carefully between the crystal trees, touching their smooth surfaces. Some were warm, others cool. All of them seemed to glow with their own inner light. Sophie found a flat area near a cluster of purple crystals and sat down. She missed her room back on Earth with her toys and books. She missed her grandmother, who always made the best cookies. Without thinking about it, she began to hum the lullaby her grandmother had taught her. As she hummed, something amazing happened. The crystals around her began to glow brighter. The purple ones turned deep blue, then silver, then back to purple. It was like they were dancing to her music. Sophie gasped and stopped humming. The crystals slowly returned to their normal glow. That was so cool, she whispered to herself. She started humming again, and once more the crystals responded with waves of color. She was so focused on the light show that she didn't notice the small opening in the rocks behind her. She didn't see the curious crystal being watching her from the shadows. Resonance of Starlight had never seen anything like this small creature. It looked nothing like the Kythera, with soft skin instead of crystal and strange coverings over its body. But when it made those beautiful sounds, the crystal formations responded in ways she had never seen before. The young Kythera crept closer, staying hidden behind the larger crystal formations. The small being seemed happy, not dangerous like the elders had warned. It was making the crystals sing in harmony, creating patterns of light that were wonderful to watch. When Sophie finally went back inside the ship, Resonance of Starlight stayed near the spot where she had been sitting. She touched the crystals that had glowed so brightly, trying to understand what had happened. That evening, as Sophie told her parents about the glowing crystals, neither Elena nor Marcus believed her story completely. "The crystals on this asteroid do seem unusual," Elena said carefully. "Maybe they react to vibrations in some way." "I want to show you tomorrow," Sophie said excitedly. "When I hummed Grandma's song, they made the most beautiful colors." After Sophie fell asleep, Elena and Marcus talked about their situation. The hull patches were holding, but barely. The air recycler was making strange noises. They needed rescue soon or they would not survive. "I've been trying to fix the distress beacon," Marcus said. "Some of the circuits might be repairable, but I need more time." "How much time do we have?" Elena asked. Marcus looked tired. 8 days. Maybe 9 if we reduce our activity and sleep more. The next morning, Sophie went outside again. This time she brought her stuffed rabbit with her. She sat in the same spot as before and began to hum. Again, the crystals responded with waves of beautiful color. "I wish you could see this, Bunny," she said to her toy. "It's like magic." This time, Resonance of Starlight was ready. She had spent the night thinking about what she had seen. The small being was making music, and music was something the Kythera understood. Maybe they could communicate. Very slowly, she began to emerge from her hiding place. Her crystal body caught the light from the formations around them, creating tiny rainbows in the air. Sophie saw the movement and turned around. When she saw Resonance of Starlight, she didn't scream or run away. Instead, she stared in wonder. "Oh," Sophie said softly, "you're beautiful." Resonance of Starlight was taller than Sophie but moved with gentle grace. Her body was made of what looked like living crystal, changing colors from pale blue to silver to purple. Where a human would have a face, she had smooth crystal surfaces that reflected light in patterns. The young Kythera began to sing, not with a voice like humans used, but with harmonic frequencies that made the crystals around them ring like bells. The sound was strange but not scary to Sophie. "Are you trying to talk to me?" Sophie asked. In response, Resonance of Starlight made softer tones, almost like a question. Sophie smiled and began to hum her grandmother's lullaby again. The crystals lit up, and Resonance of Starlight's body glowed brighter. The Kythera listened carefully to the melody, then tried to copy it with her own harmonic sounds. It wasn't perfect, but it was close enough that Sophie clapped her hands in delight. "You can sing my song," she said. "That's amazing." For the next hour, the two young beings sat together sharing music. Sophie would hum a melody, and Resonance of Starlight would try to copy it. The Kythera would create harmonic patterns that made the crystals glow, and Sophie would laugh and try to hum along. They couldn't speak each other's language, but they were beginning to understand each other. When Sophie's 30 minutes were up, Elena called for her to come back inside. Sophie waved goodbye to her new friend, who quickly disappeared back into the crystal formations. "Mama, Papa," Sophie ran into the ship excitedly. "I made a friend. She's made of crystal and she can sing." Elena and Marcus looked at each other with concern. Was Sophie so scared and lonely that she was imagining friends? "Sophie, sweetheart," Elena said gently. "Are you sure you saw someone out there?" "Yes, she's real." She learned my song and made all the crystals light up even brighter. Marcus knelt down to Sophie's eye level. "Can you describe what she looked like?" Sophie thought carefully. "She was taller than me, but not as tall as you. She was made of crystal like the rocks outside, but she could move and sing. Her voice sounded like bells." Elena and Marcus didn't know what to think. It seemed impossible, but Sophie was a truthful child. She had never made up stories like this before. Over the next few days, Sophie continued to visit her crystal friend. Each time Resonance of Starlight was waiting for her. The young Kythera began to learn simple human words by listening to Sophie talk. "Friend," Sophie would say, pointing to herself and then to Resonance of Starlight. The Kythera would make harmonic sounds that Sophie began to understand meant agreement. Resonance of Starlight tried to copy the sound with her crystal voice. It came out as something like Sophie, but Sophie was delighted that her friend was trying to learn her name. Meanwhile, deep in the caves below, the Kythera elders were growing worried. Resonance of Starlight had been missing from her duties, and some of the younger Kythera reported seeing her near the surface. "This is dangerous," sang the eldest council member. "If she has made contact with the strangers, she could bring trouble to all of us. Perhaps we should observe these beings more closely," suggested another elder, "to understand what they want." But the oldest and most cautious of the elders disagreed. "The ancient songs tell us what happened to other Kythera colonies. When strangers discovered our ability to grow crystals, they enslaved our people. We must remain hidden." On the 5th day after the crash, Sophie's friendship with Resonance of Starlight saved all their lives. Marcus was working outside the ship, trying to repair a damaged sensor array. The asteroid's weak gravity made the work difficult, and he didn't notice when his safety line came loose from the ship. He was reaching for a tool when his feet slipped on the crystal-covered rocks. Without the safety line, he began to float away from the ship in the low gravity. His environmental suit had only 30 minutes of air, and Elena was inside the ship with Sophie, unaware of the danger. Marcus tried to push off from nearby rocks to get back to the ship, but he only succeeded in spinning himself around. Panic began to set in as he drifted further away. That's when Resonance of Starlight appeared. She had been watching Sophie's family, learning their routines and trying to understand their needs. She saw Marcus in trouble and knew she had to help. The young Kythera could move across the asteroid's surface much better than humans. Her crystal body was perfectly adapted to the low gravity and rough terrain. She quickly reached a position where Marcus would drift past her. When Marcus saw the crystal being, he was too surprised to be afraid. Resonance of Starlight caught him gently and used the crystal formations like anchor points to pull them both back toward the ship. By the time they reached the ship, Elena and Sophie had noticed Marcus was in trouble. They watched in amazement as the crystal being helped him back to safety. "That's my friend," Sophie said excitedly. On the 8th day after the crash, everything changed. Elena was working on the ship's communication system when the sensors picked up something that made her blood run cold. 3 large ships were approaching the asteroid, moving in perfect military formation. "Marcus," she called urgently. "We have company." Marcus hurried to the control panel and looked at the readings. The ships were massive, each one 10 times larger than their little cargo vessel. Their design was angular and threatening, nothing like the rounded shapes of human ships. "Those aren't human vessels," Marcus said quietly, "and they're not here to rescue us." Outside, Sophie was sitting with Starlight near their usual spot by the purple crystals. The two friends had developed their own simple way of talking. Sophie would speak in basic words, and Starlight would respond with harmonic tones that Sophie was beginning to understand. "My mama and papa are worried," Sophie was telling Starlight. "The air machine is making bad sounds, and Papa says the food won't last much longer." Starlight listened carefully. Over the past few days, she had learned many human words by watching the family. She understood that these strange, soft creatures needed special air to breathe, and had to eat different things than Kythera. Suddenly, Starlight's crystal body began to resonate with warning frequencies. Deep below in the caves, her people were sending urgent messages through the crystal network. "Danger comes from the sky," the harmonic message said. "Hide the surface dwellers. The devourers have found us." Sophie noticed Starlight's colors changing from calm blue to urgent red. "What's wrong, Starlight? Are you sick?" But before Starlight could try to explain, the 3 alien ships landed on the asteroid's surface with heavy crashes that shook the ground. Each ship was dark gray with sharp edges, and strange symbols glowed along their sides. From the largest ship, a group of beings emerged wearing heavy armor. They walked on 2 legs like humans, but they were taller and covered in thick, scaled skin. Their eyes glowed red in the dim light, and their mouths showed rows of sharp teeth. The leader of these creatures was larger than the others. His armor was decorated with marks that showed his high rank. This was Commander Scar Thess of the Hegemony Forces, known throughout the galaxy for his cruelty. Scar Thess looked around the asteroid with satisfaction. His scanners had detected exactly what he hoped to find: a world rich in valuable crystals, and better yet, signs of primitive life forms that could be enslaved to harvest them. "Set up the scanning equipment," he ordered his soldiers in their harsh, clicking language. "I want to know exactly what resources this rock contains." Meanwhile, Elena and Marcus watched the alien landing with growing fear. They had heard stories about the Hegemony, a group of warlike species that conquered worlds and enslaved their populations. "We need to hide," Marcus said. "If they find us," but it was too late. The Hegemony scanners were far more advanced than anything humans used. Within minutes, they had detected the crashed human ship and its 3 occupants. "Interesting," Scar Thess said, reading the scanner results. "Humans, far from their usual space routes, and there appear to be native life forms living in the caves below." He smiled, showing his sharp teeth. This was even better than he had hoped. Humans were known to be emotional about their young. If he captured the adult humans, he could use them to control both the child and the cave dwellers. "Bring me the adult humans," he commanded his soldiers. "Leave the small one for now. We may need it later." Sophie and Starlight heard the heavy footsteps of armored soldiers approaching the ship. Starlight's people had sent more urgent messages through the crystal network. "The Devourers seek the crystal growers," the harmonic message warned. "They will enslave all who cannot hide. Take the Starsong child to the deep places. Protect her as she protected us with her music." Starlight understood. These armored beings were the same type that had destroyed other Cathera colonies in ancient times. They would capture her people and force them to grow crystals as slaves. But Sophie and her family had shown them kindness and friendship. The Cathera would not let them suffer. Moving quickly, Starlight began to guide Sophie toward a hidden entrance in the crystal formations. "Starlight, what are you doing?" Sophie asked, confused and scared by her friend's urgent movements. Starlight tried to explain with simple harmonic tones, but there wasn't time. The sounds of struggle were coming from the direction of the ship. Sophie's parents were in trouble. "Mama, Papa?" Sophie started to run toward the ship, but Starlight gently but firmly stopped her. The young Cathara made urgent warning sounds and pointed toward the alien soldiers. Even Sophie could understand that these were dangerous beings. Near the ship, Elena and Marcus were putting up a fight, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. The Hegemony soldiers' energy weapons quickly overwhelmed their simple tools. "Where is the child?" Scar Thess demanded as his soldiers bound the human adults with electronic restraints. "What child?" Elena said, trying to look confused. "There's just the 2 of us." Scar Thess laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the crystal formations. "Our scanners detected 3 human life signs. Don't try to deceive me. Where is the young one?" When Elena and Marcus refused to answer, Scar Thess became angry. He activated a pain device on Elena's restraints, making her cry out. "I will ask one more time," he said coldly. "Where is the child?" Marcus tried to break free of his bonds. "Leave her alone. She's done nothing to you."
"Ah, so there is a child," Scar Thess said with satisfaction.
"And from your reactions, I assume it's important to you. Excellent, that makes this much easier." He turned to his soldiers. "Search the area, find the young human, and scan for the cave dwellers our equipment detected. I want them all brought to the ship." As the soldiers spread out across the asteroid, Starlight led Sophie deeper into the crystal formations, toward passages that only the Cathera knew about. But Sophie could hear her parents' voices carried on the thin air. "Sophie," Elena called out desperately. "If you can hear me, stay hidden. Don't come out no matter what happens." Tears ran down Sophie's face as she listened to her mother's frightened voice. She wanted to run to her parents to help them somehow, but Starlight held her back, making urgent harmonic sounds that meant danger. Deep in the caves below, the Cathera elders were faced with a terrible choice. They had spent thousands of years hiding from exactly this type of threat. The smart thing to do would be to seal their tunnels and wait for the invaders to leave. But the Starsong child had brought them something they had never experienced before: friendship with another species. Her music had made their crystals sing in ways they never thought possible. And now she was in danger. "We could hide in the deep caves," sang one elder. "Wait for the Devourers to take what they want and leave." "But they have the Starsong child's parents," sang another. "And they seek us as well. They will not leave until they find us." The oldest elder, whose crystal body had grown dim with age, made the decision that would change everything. The Star Song child showed us kindness when she could have feared us. She sang in tones that resonated throughout the cave system. Her family treated young residents of Starlight with respect when they could have driven her away. Now it is our turn to show courage. What do you propose? Asked the other elders. We fight, the old elder sang, and her words made the crystals around them ring like battle songs. Not for conquest or resources, but to protect those who have shown us friendship. Let the Devourers learn that the Kithara are not as helpless as they believe. Meanwhile, on the surface, Scarthes was growing impatient. His soldiers had found the hidden entrance that Starlight had used, but the passages were too narrow for armored hegemony troops. Commander, one of his soldiers reported, the tunnels go deep into the asteroid. Our equipment shows multiple life signs below, but we cannot reach them. Scarthes looked at his 2 human prisoners with cold calculation. Then we will make them come to us. He activated a communication device that broadcast his voice across the entire asteroid. His words were automatically translated into harmonic frequencies that the Kithara could understand. Attention, cave dwellers, his voice boomed from speakers on his ships. I am Commander Scarthes of the Hegemony. I know you can hear me, and I know you are hiding the human child. In the crystal tunnels below, Sophie pressed close to Starlight as the terrible voice echoed around them. You have 1 hour to surrender yourselves and deliver the child to me, Scarthes continued. If you do not comply, I will execute these 2 adult humans slowly and painfully. Their deaths will be on your conscience. To prove he was serious, he activated Elena's pain restraints again. Her scream of agony echoed across the asteroid, reaching even the deepest caves. Mama! Sophie cried out, but Starlight quickly covered her mouth to keep her quiet. The young Kithara was shaking with fear and anger. Her harmonic patterns were chaotic, reflecting her emotional turmoil. But she knew that revealing Sophie's location would only make things worse. In the caves around them, other young Kithara were gathering. They had heard their elders call to defend their friends, and they were ready to act. Sophie sat in the deepest crystal cave, surrounded by dozens of young Kithara who had come to protect her. Their bodies glowed softly in the darkness, creating a circle of light around the frightened human child. But even their presence couldn't stop her tears as she listened to her parents' voices echoing from the surface. Please, just let our daughter go. Elena's voice pleaded through Scarthes's speakers. She's just a child. She can't hurt anyone. The alien commander's harsh laughter filled the caves. Your child is exactly what makes this interesting, human. Children make parents do foolish things, like surrender when they should fight. Sophie wiped her eyes and looked at Starlight, who was glowing with anxious red patterns. Around them, the other Kithara were making worried harmonic sounds as they listened to the communications from their elders above. The Devourers have powerful weapons, one young Kithara sang softly. How can we fight them? The elders say we must try, another replied. But they are so few and the enemy is so strong. Sophie didn't understand all the harmonic language, but she could feel their fear and sadness. These crystal people had lived in peace for thousands of years. They weren't soldiers or fighters. They were gentle beings who grew beautiful crystals and sang to make them glow, but they were willing to risk everything to protect her. I can't let them get hurt because of me, Sophie whispered to herself. She stood up, and Starlight immediately moved to her side, making questioning harmonic tones. Starlight, Sophie said, looking into her friend's crystalline face. Can you teach the others my grandmother's lullaby? The one that makes the crystals glow so brightly? Starlight tilted her head, confused by the strange request. Sophie began to hum the gentle melody she had learned as a baby. As always, the crystals around them responded with waves of beautiful light. But this time Sophie had an idea that was much bigger than just making pretty colors. What if we could make all the crystals on the asteroid sing together? She asked. Not just the ones here in the cave, but everywhere. What if we could make them so bright that people could see them from far away? Starlight's crystal body began to glow with excitement as she understood what Sophie was thinking. The young Kithara quickly began sharing harmonic patterns with the others, explaining Sophie's idea in their musical language. The response was immediate and amazing. Every young Kithara in the cave began to resonate with the same frequency, creating a harmony that made the crystal walls ring like giant bells. But Sophie wasn't finished with her plan. My grandmother told me that music can travel across great distances, she said to Starlight. She said that when people sing together, their voices can reach the hearts of others far away. What if we could make our song reach the stars? High above them, on the asteroid's surface, the Cathara elders were preparing for what they knew would be a hopeless battle. Commander Scarthess had given them 30 more minutes to surrender, and when that time was up, he would begin harming the human parents. The elders had weapons of a sort. They could cause crystal formations to grow rapidly, potentially trapping enemy soldiers. But the hegemony had energy weapons that could blast through crystal as easily as soft rock. "We do what we can," the oldest elder sang to her people, "but we must accept that we may not survive this day." That's when they felt it. Deep below in the crystal caves, something extraordinary was happening. The young Cathara, guided by Sophie's human voice, were creating a harmonic resonance unlike anything in their species' history. Sophie's lullaby, amplified by dozens of Cathara voices, was traveling through the entire crystal network of the asteroid. Every crystal formation, from the smallest cave decoration to the massive spires on the surface, began to glow and sing in perfect harmony. But the song didn't stop there. The crystal formations on this asteroid were connected to a network that spread throughout the entire star system. Ancient Cathara colonies had left crystal seeds on dozens of worlds, creating a communication system that spanned light years. As Sophie's lullaby spread through this network, something incredible happened. The song began to travel faster than light itself, carried by quantum resonances that human scientists didn't even know existed. On the surface, Commander Scarthess and his soldiers were amazed to see every crystal formation on the asteroid suddenly blaze with brilliant light. The harmonic frequency was so powerful that it made their armor vibrate uncomfortably. "What is this?" Scarthess demanded angrily. "Some kind of weapon?" But his soldiers were already reporting something even more alarming. Their ship sensors were picking up massive energy readings from across the star system. Every asteroid, every moon, every world with crystal formations was suddenly singing the same song. Light years away, at the edge of human space, monitoring stations detected something they had never seen before: energy patterns that seemed to carry meaning, broadcasting on frequencies that bypassed normal space-time limitations. Captain Sarah Chen was on duty at Deep Space Station Alpha when the readings came in. She was a veteran of many rescue missions, known for her quick thinking and determination to save human lives. "What are you seeing, Lieutenant?" she asked her sensor operator. "It's like music, Captain," the young officer said, confusion clear in his voice, "but it's coming from everywhere at once. The computer says it's some kind of quantum harmonic resonance, but that should be impossible." Captain Chen studied the readings carefully. Hidden within the alien harmonies, her trained ear picked up something familiar: a simple human lullaby, the kind grandmothers sang to help children fall asleep. "There's a human signal mixed in with this," she said slowly. "Someone is out there and they're calling for help in the only way they can." She turned to her navigation officer. "Plot a course for the source of this signal. Emergency speed." "Captain, that will take us outside authorized patrol routes," the officer warned. "Then we'll get authorization on the way." Captain Chen replied firmly. "Someone out there needs help and we're going to provide it." Back on the asteroid, Sophie's song was having an effect she never could have imagined. The harmonic resonance was so powerful that it was interfering with the hegemony ship's electrical systems. Lights flickered, weapon systems experienced errors, and communication equipment produced nothing but static. Commander Scarthess was furious. His perfect capture mission was falling apart because of some primitive sound-making. "Shut down those crystal formations," he ordered his soldiers. "Use the heavy blasters." But when his troops tried to destroy the singing crystals, something unexpected happened. The Cathara elders, emboldened by the courage shown by their young ones below, began their own counterattack. Crystal spires burst from the ground around the hegemony soldiers, not to harm them, but to amplify Sophie's song even more. The harmonic frequency became so intense that the alien troops had to retreat back to their ships to escape the overwhelming sound. In the crystal caves, Sophie was getting tired, but she kept singing. Starlight and the other young Cathara supported her, adding their voices to hers and keeping the resonance strong. "Is it working?" Sophie asked weakly. "Can anyone hear us?" As if in answer to her question, new signals began reaching the asteroid. Human voices speaking in the clear professional tones of rescue crews. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Ship Retribution," came the voice over emergency frequencies. We have received your distress signal and are en route to your location. Hold on, we're coming. Commander Scarthess heard the transmission and his red eyes blazed with anger. A human warship was coming, drawn by the impossible song that filled space around them. He had two choices: retreat now and lose his prize, or eliminate the evidence before the rescue ship arrived. He chose elimination. Prepare the planetary bombardment weapons, he ordered his crew. We'll destroy this entire asteroid and everything on it. No witnesses, no evidence, no problems. But Scarthess had made one critical mistake. He had underestimated the power of a child's love for her parents, and the willingness of gentle creatures to become fierce when protecting those they cared about. In the deepest cave, Sophie heard the hum of charging energy weapons through the asteroid's crystal network. She knew somehow that the bad aliens were preparing to destroy everything. Starlight, she said urgently, can we make the song even stronger? Can we reach my people faster? Starlight's response was to gather every Kythera on the asteroid, young and old, elder and child, into one massive harmonic chorus. Their combined voices, amplified by every crystal formation on their world, created a quantum resonance so powerful that it tore a hole in space-time itself. Sophie's lullaby, carried by alien crystal technology and powered by friendship between species, reached Earth in seconds instead of years. And humanity heard the call of one of their own, asking not for conquest or glory, but simply for the chance to protect those who had protected her. The answer came swiftly, and it came with the fury of a species that would move mountains to save their children. The retribution dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the asteroid field, with a flash of brilliant blue energy. Captain Sarah Chen stood on her ship's bridge, watching the tactical display as her sensors painted a clear picture of what was happening.
3 hegemony warships, her tactical officer reported.
They're charging planetary bombardment weapons. Target appears to be the large asteroid where the signal originated. Time until they fire? Captain Chen asked calmly. 2 minutes, Captain. Captain Chen had faced impossible odds before, but never with so much at stake. Somewhere on that asteroid was a human child who had found a way to sing across the galaxy for help. That child, and whoever had helped her, deserved every protection humanity could provide. All weapons target the hegemony vessels, she ordered. Launch fighters, send a message to Hegemony Command. Any harm to civilians on that asteroid will be considered an act of war against Earth. On the asteroid's surface, Commander Scarthess watched the human warship approach with growing anger. His bombardment weapons were almost ready, but now he would have to fight through a human destroyer to complete his mission. Sir, one of his officers reported nervously, our weapons are still experiencing interference from the crystal resonance. Accuracy will be reduced by 60%. Scarthess snarled, showing his sharp teeth. Then we destroy the human ship first. All vessels, attack formation. But as the 3 hegemony ships moved to engage the retribution, something extraordinary happened. The quantum resonance that Sophie and the Kythera had created was still active, still carrying their song across space. And that song was being heard by more than just Earth. Across the galaxy, other species that had suffered under hegemony rule picked up the harmonic signal. They heard a child's lullaby mixed with alien voices, singing together in perfect harmony despite being completely different kinds of beings. It was a song of friendship, courage, and hope that transcended all language barriers. The first ship to answer the call was a Zenthari medical vessel. The Zenthari were peaceful traders whose colonies had been raided by the hegemony many times. When they heard Sophie's song, they changed course immediately. This is Medical Ship Healing Light, came their transmission. We stand with the songmakers against the Devourers. Next came a squadron of Altarian fighters. The bird-like Altarians had lost their homeworld to hegemony strip mining operations. Their leader's voice was filled with determination. Altarian Strike Wing reporting. The child's song reaches all who have hearts to hear it. We will not let the Devourers harm those who sing of friendship. Within minutes, ships from a dozen different species were converging on the asteroid. All of them had been touched by Sophie's impossible song, and all of them recognized something worth protecting when they heard it. Commander Scarthess found himself facing not just one human destroyer, but an entire fleet of former victims who had decided to fight back. In the crystal caves below, Sophie was exhausted from maintaining her song, but she could feel something changing. The harmony around her was growing stronger, as if voices from across the stars were joining her lullaby. Starlight, she whispered. Are more people coming to help? Starlight's crystal body was glowing with joy as she received harmonic messages from the surface. The young Cathara made musical sounds that Sophie had learned meant yes and many and friends. Above them, the Cathara elders were amazed by what they were witnessing. Ships were arriving from across the galaxy, all drawn by the song that had begun with one human child's kindness to a lonely crystal being. The battle began with a thunderous exchange of energy weapons. The Retribution was outnumbered, but Captain Chen was a skilled tactician. She used the asteroid field as cover, darting between the large rocks while her weapons found their targets. The first hegemony ship took heavy damage to its weapon systems and began to drift. But Scarthess's flagship was still dangerous, and its bombardment weapons were nearly ready to fire. That's when the rest of the rescue fleet arrived. The Zenthari medical ship extended powerful defensive shields around the asteroid, protecting it from bombardment. The Altarian fighters swarmed around the hegemony vessels like angry hornets, their small size making them hard to target. A massive Corvanian heavy cruiser, built by a species of peaceful giants, added its firepower to the battle. The Corvanians had been enslaved by the hegemony for decades before winning their freedom in a bloody revolution. "This is Captain Thurok of the Stone Mountain," came the deep, rumbling voice of the Corvanian commander. The song child showed courage against impossible odds. "We do the same." But the most unexpected arrival was a fleet of ships that no one recognized, sleek, advanced vessels that seemed to be made of living crystal. "Who are those?" Captain Chen asked her sensor officer. "Unknown, Captain. But they're broadcasting the same harmonic frequency as the signal from the asteroid." On the surface, the oldest Kithara elder was singing with joy. "The deep wanderers have returned," she harmonized to her people. "Our ancient cousins who left the homeworld millennia ago have heard the Star Song Child's call." The crystal ships, vessels of Kithara who had spread across the galaxy in ages past, joined the battle with weapons unlike anything anyone had ever seen. They fired beams of pure harmonic energy that disrupted the hegemony ship systems without causing explosions or death. Commander Scarthess realized his situation was hopeless. He was facing an alliance of species that shouldn't have been able to work together, all united by a child's song. His 3 ships were outnumbered 20-1, but he was too proud to surrender. Instead, he activated his ship's self-destruction sequence. "If I cannot have this prize," he snarled, "then no one will." His ship began to glow with dangerous energy as its reactor prepared to explode. The blast would destroy everything within 100 kilometers, including the asteroid and everyone on it. That's when Sophie made one final, desperate choice. In the crystal caves, she stood up on shaking legs and began to sing her grandmother's lullaby one more time. But this time she wasn't calling for rescue. She was singing a song of protection, of love, of a child's determination to save everyone who had tried to save her. The Kithara joined her immediately, their voices creating harmony that made every crystal formation on the asteroid shine like a star. The harmonic resonance spread outward, reaching Scarthess's ship just as it was about to explode. The quantum frequencies disrupted the ship's reactor, causing it to shut down safely instead of exploding. Scarthess and his crew were left floating in a powerless vessel, surrounded by the rescue fleet. "This is Captain Chen to all ships," came the human commander's voice over the communication channels. "The civilians are safe. The child's song has ended the battle without unnecessary death. This is what happens when different species choose to help instead of harm each other." In the days that followed, the rescue became something much bigger. Representatives from dozens of worlds came to the asteroid to hear the full story of what had happened. They learned about Sophie's friendship with Starlight, about the Kithara's decision to protect a human child even at the risk of their own lives, and about how a simple lullaby had united the galaxy. The Earth Parliament's response was swift and absolute. Within a week, they passed the Sophie Protocol, a law that declared the Kithara species under humanity's eternal protection. Any harm to a Kithara anywhere in the galaxy would be treated as an attack on Earth itself. But the protection went both ways. The Kithara, no longer hiding in fear, became humanity's partners in exploring the galaxy. Their crystal technology opened up new frontiers in communication and transportation. Together, they established the first truly peaceful interstellar alliance based on friendship rather than conquest. Sophie grew up to become Earth's youngest ever ambassador to alien species. She learned to speak 17 different languages, including the harmonic frequencies of the Kithara. Her childhood friend Starlight became the first non-human to address the Earth Parliament, singing a song of gratitude that brought tears to the eyes of hardened politicians. The asteroid where their friendship began was transformed into a memorial and learning center called Harmony Station. Children from across the galaxy came there to learn about the day when a little girl's courage and kindness changed the fate of entire civilizations. The Kythera crystal gardens that grew around Harmony Station became one of the wonders of the galaxy. Visitors would come from thousands of light years away to hear human musicians play alongside Kythera singers, creating music that made the crystals dance with colors that had no names. But the most important change was in how the galaxy thought about strength and power. The hegemony, which had ruled through fear and force, began to crumble as more species chose cooperation over conquest. The example set by a human child and her crystal friend showed everyone that true strength came from protecting others, not from conquering them. Years later, when Sophie was asked about that day on the asteroid, she would smile and say, "I just did what anyone would do for their friends." The amazing thing wasn't that I tried to help them. It was that so many people heard my song and decided to help us all.